Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose we probably have some important work to do today. I'm kind of caught between things. I'm not sure what to believe, what to think.
Okay.
I mean, did she do it? Did she not do it? Uh, was the movie good? Was it not good?
Are we talking about Tar again?
No, we're not talking about Tar.
As your therapist, I can't tell you what to think or tell you what to believe. I can send you to I can send you to a hospital if you say something I don't like, but I can't tell you what to say.
Sure.
But I can tell you, sometimes if you're not sure if a movie was good or if it was okay, you just gotta kind of decide you feel one way about it and then go off super cocksure of your opinion and not let anybody change it for you and just ignore any and all evidence to the contrary that you ever believed anything different for any reason. And I think that's really healthy.
You mean like I pretend to know what I'm talking about? And
No. You act like you know what you're talking about because you do know what you're talking about because you've decided you know what you're talking about.
Okay. I think I'm understanding here.
So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I've decided. I've come to a decision. Anatomy of a Fall. Sorry, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's alright. It does have me interested in Justine Triet's other stuff. I will say that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was really interested in it. I mean, I don't know, it's pretty on the tin what this film is. Like, you know what to expect going in. There is intrigue. You're not certain who's telling the truth. It's a trial sort of drama mystery situation.
Well, and I think also in addition to that, it's specifically there's a degree of things you can't know and that are going to be limited. For example, a pretty big theme in the film is barriers, just barriers to knowledge, where I don't want to call her by the actress's name by accident. Sandra Voiter. Both named Sandra, very confusing. Sandra Voiter, for example, has this whole language barrier where she can kind of speak French, but she's German by birth and speaks English at home as the second language she's most confident in.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't come up super hard, but there's definitely a kind of continuing theme of her struggling sometimes to communicate something or possibly not actually understanding what was said to her or not understanding what she is saying or what she is saying maybe not being translated correctly. There was even a whole thing where it was the actress who played her, Sandra Holler, specifically I think is a French actress, and so initially wanted to mostly speak French in the film, but the director was like, no, you're speaking English. No, it's good that you have trouble with this language. Actually, that's supposed to be true.
You're speaking English, get wrecked. Yeah, that it's very interesting because I was listening to the director talk a little bit about how and you don't have to have listened to the director to kind of make this observation. It's pretty clear from what the movie's saying, but she kind of uses different languages for kind of French is for with relation to specifically the trial scenes. French is kind of for things that she's more rehearsed and more confident in talking about, and then she switches to English when she feels like she's on the defensive or she has to come up with something new. Just as sort of the thing that she's more comfortable with. But it does it's very smart. It's a very, very intelligent touch because it kind of is this microcosmic expression of her sort of tug of war, her narcissistic tug of war on like what the narrative is, and you know, how she specifically is perceived throughout all of this. Like she wants a very tight control over that as well.
Which I especially like of the film because I feel like they did a very, very good job. Unlike, okay, we brought up Tar earlier. There's obvious comparisons here. A lot of people have made them. But unlike in Tar, where it's air quotes ambiguous, but you gotta be like really giving her some fucking leeway to not think that she's 100% guilty of some of the shit she's accused of doing.
Yeah.
Like in Tar, absolutely. Like Lydia Tar definitely is like a serial creep who takes advantage of women. Like there's very, very little doubt in the text outside of the fact that outside of doubt that she attempts to curate and put forward. But you know, the whole point of the film is that she's really bad she becomes worse at doing it and gets trapped in corners. So there's not really a lot of room for doubt outside of like, if you really, really want to take her completely at her word, which you shouldn't.
No, yeah, absolutely.
The thing I really like about this film in that regard is that it is a lot more, I think, open-ended in that there is no smoking gun, right? Yeah. There's like probably some of the strongest evidence would be like the blood splatter, and I don't find the prosecution's claim of how the blood splatter got there very, very convincing. For those who haven't seen it, which you should, it's long, but it's like a decent long. They argue that like the angle it's at only makes sense if he was like hit upon the head like 3 stories up, and then her defense's claim is like, no, it makes sense if he hit his head coming down and then like rolled over. Which like, I don't know, that sounds more realistic to me than just like the blood happened to hit at an exact angle that was like gets underneath this railing but like doesn't leave blood anywhere else coming down the side of the house.
Yeah.
But you know, ultimately the thing that I like with the film is that ultimately the question of whether or not she murdered her husband, or if it was an accident, or if it was a suicide, is kind of secondary to how much she still needs to control the narrative anyway.
Right, yeah.
And that's what I find really, really fascinating, is because she ends up easily creating like more suspicion on herself because she can't not control the narrative. And you even see it early on with the thing of like, when the guy is first like, okay, is there any reason he might have killed himself? And she was like, no, absolutely not. Because like she needs to have control over it, and like clearly finds the idea of her husband killing himself like embarrassing.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like the notion of whether she did it is like so secondary. It's so unimportant to kind of what the film is saying. It's like almost inappropriate, almost disrespectful to even ask it. Anyway, do you think she did it?
My moment of thinking she did it was the saying, I want to go home to my son, and then going out to a fucking bar with her lawyer.
That was pretty damning.
That was so Casey Anthony. Like, I was like, okay. I was like, all right. I almost was like, yeah, maybe you didn't do it. But then I was like, oh, this bitch did it.
I must go home. I must tend to my son. I want to be around my family. Gets in the car. Alexa, play Thank You Next. Yeah, she was running wild. She was doing way too much. But my view of it is like, through the trial as it was presented in the film, I think that she was personally, and now obviously this doesn't matter, and I can kind of talk about, you know, how my more intimate feelings about that or whatever. I don't know necessarily, like, I don't think that she struck his head and, pushed him out a window. And there's all of this testifying about him being, like, suicidal, and the honestly kind of believable stuff with, like, the aspirin, toward the end of the film. So I kind of think he killed himself, but I think she's guilty of something unconscious. She's guilty of something in the sort of shadow world, and not that she's, like, guilty of causing him to kill himself necessarily, but, like, the movie does something very interesting where it creates this crime where she is ostensibly found innocent, but her life is kind of ruined, sort of almost spiritually, and, like, in this, like, it's a victory at the trial, but it's like a failure in her soul, if that feels right to you.
No,
like
absolutely, because she has that. There's that scene right before she gets the verdict where she's watching the news, and they just straight up say, they're like, they straight up say, like, oh, it doesn't really matter what the thing is because everyone's just gonna believe she did it because that's more intriguing.
Yeah.
And even straight up saying that it's because, like, she's a writer, like, it is, like, it just makes more sense thematically, like, and, like, kind of her realizing that, like, by doing this almost autofiction style writing, she has invited literary interpretation of her own life. That it's not a one-way street. She doesn't get to literarily interpret her own life, but now that she has put it out for consumption, other people also get to interpret her own life.
Yeah, that's the tough part. That's
But I absolutely agree with that, where it's like it's less that whether or not she really did it, and more that, like, it is a matter of public court record now that, like, she's kind of a control freak, and, like, kind of was, like, being really shitty to her husband and probably their kid by extension.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Definitely a huge narcissist. I was very, like, the final scene is just so heart-wrenching and disgusting and horrifying. Just the whole structure of, like, how her son, like, there's these kind of, like, flimsy governmental things where they kind of try to put barriers between her and her son, but it's like, how do you fucking do that, You're a government agent trying to come in between family and, like, this. It's her son, bro. Like,
yeah,
it's like the son of a narcissist mother. We didn't think this was gonna happen, where he was gonna go the extra 10 miles to try to, like, exonerate her or whatever.
I love how well the film, kind of use another barrier being Daniel's I think it's mild blind. I don't think he's fully blind, if I remember correctly, but he's still blind.
Yes.
Is that leads to a lot of, like, scenes that are filmed that are clearly recalled, but they're recalled where he's only going to have, like, the sense of, like, physical presence and sound to go off of. Which, like, builds up to the scene of him listening to his parents fighting, and what is clearly a imagined recreation of how the fight looks, which cuts off at the exact point in which there becomes a doubt of what is happening on the tape.
Yeah, there's...
Because then it cuts straight back to the trial, and suddenly he's, like, present in the trial physically, as everyone is listening to, like, some sort of physical scuffle and fight and sounds of impact, and it becomes debated of, like, okay, well, who was hitting who was smashing what, who was moving where.
Right. Yeah, and that's all, like, testimony that,
Right?
I want to quickly bring up another French film that I watched this year. Went to see with friend of the show, Aaron. Shout out, Aaron. A film called Saint Omer, which I bring up only because of its, like, kind of surface level similarities with Anatomy of a Fall. It's a French film. It's about a trial. I've really got to see a lot of the French legal system, the fictionalized French legal system this year, and
the main thing I've learned about it, they love costumes.
Yeah, didn't you say in your review that it's a vibes based?
I either I did or somebody whose review I liked did. I think somebody else said that.
Yeah,
but yeah, like the French court system has a vibes based legal system,
which is like also true in Saint Omer. To give an over under on Saint Omer, it is a very loosely fictionalized film based off of the real life experiences of the filmmaker Alice Diop. It's about her experience going to the court trial of a Senegalese immigrant mother who killed her own child, and it's based off of a real immigrant mother who killed her own child.
Oh, yeah. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, the case made news mainly because, of this kind of racist conceit of like, oh, this black woman on trial for killing her child, she's very well spoken. It's like very insulting and kind of minimizing. But this film, Saint Omer, which I think I kind of prefer to Anatomy of a Fall, it's this very interesting and very stirring sort of portrayal of humanity. They bring up, in the trial, they bring up like all sorts of things. They bring up like her past, how she was being taken advantage of by this like professor guy who she was financially dependent on, who was not ever going to pay attention to the kid that he made her have, sort of. He made her have a bunch of abortions. Her family, she was having much trouble with her family. People come in, there's like testimony about witchcraft. It kind of ends on this like very humanistic lens toward both the character and like the sort of writer stand-in character who's watching the trial. Sort of, I would say it brings to the fore kind of a more astute observation about human sort of motivations and like the unconscious mind and the unconscious world. But I was struck by kind of how similar it was to Anatomy of a Fall and sort of the comparisons that I was able to draw between the two films, because I think they are doing something lightly different, whereas Anatomy of a Fall is kind of like more interested in, let's say, specific neuroses as opposed to kind of, it's Anatomy of a Fall is more of an internal visceral movie, and Saint Omer is more about external, how we fit into and interact with like the world around us.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can see what you mean by that.
And obviously we're living through like a sort of prolonged fad true crime thing. But like I think we're also kind of in an interesting phase of exhaustion with the sort of true crime obsession, where just the entire nature of criminality is being kind of prodded, I guess. I would say like a question I would place is like when would you say is like the first time a major trial was happening and you were like, wait a minute, I don't have to care about whether this person did it. I'm not in the courtroom. Because I feel like those were always important experiences for me.
Yeah. I'm thinking. I want to say probably Scott Peterson, maybe?
Ooh, yeah.
like the Scott Peterson trial might have been a big one. Either that or one of the Nancy Grace like murdered child ones.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
it had to have been one that was really big in high school, because there would have been a time where I would have been interested in it, but then like that was around when there was so many that I just at some point I was like, I don't know this person. Like I don't know who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, like how the fuck am I gonna know who did what?
Not only do you like, oh, I don't know this person, how am I supposed to like know who did what? But also like, okay, what am I gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Like fuck, like I'm gonna hold them accountable. I'm gonna kill them if they don't go to jail. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Casey Anthony was a really big one for me. Because I was getting really fatigued with the way people were being like, this bitch, cunt, woman, cunt, whore, cunt, killed her kids. And it's like, okay, maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But you're kind of taking something very deep and personal out on everyone around you by talking about this trial that has nothing to do with you in this way.
Right?
It's kind of a similar thing happened with Michael Jackson, where I would have conversations with people in my school, like in high school. Like I literally remember a conversation I had where I was like with two people, and they were both on like two separate sides of the issue, and they asked me, they were like, "Do you think Michael Jackson did it? Do you think he, you know,
yeah?
do you think those kids, blah 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 blah?" And my response was like, I don't think it makes much sense that he would have done it. Not that that's like a firm yes or no answer to that question, but it's also kind of not my business. But the kid who was like obsessed with the fact that like he thought Michael did it, he was like, well, if someone did that to my kids, if someone did that to my kids, or if someone did that to someone I know, and it was just like, well, okay. But that's like a different situation.
Well, also, statistically speaking, someone probably did.
Right.
Like, and I don't see you doing anything about it, so.
I mean, yeah, and you know, who's to say what that person's own history with that kind of stuff is? We never want to assume anything about anybody, but like,
yeah.
It's, but it kind of brings to bear like the way people think about criminality and the way true crime kind of perpetuates itself, and people's kind of over investment in these things. And it, you know, makes for it's a very good topic for fiction.
Yeah, no, I it's interesting. It's fascinating. And like I think that's also, even to title back in, what makes the sort of ending sequence with Daniel having to make a decision so interesting.
Yeah.
Is that it becomes like, well, unlike everyone else where this can be like TV talk show fodder, whatever decision you make, you have to live with.
Yeah. Yeah. Sending your mom to jail. Can you imagine?
Sending your mom to jail, or letting your mom walk free after she murdered your dad.
Right?
Like neither are particularly great choices.
Yeah. It's impossible. It's like not easy at all. And I also think that like more to that point, the film kind of gestures at this thing that I feel where you can't really account for. I think things being in writing and people, for example, communicating through each other over social media and over like, you know, voice messages or video, like whatever, like it's a fundamentally different type of communication in every possible way from like being in a physical space with someone.
Yeah.
Just because like all of that conflict where he's the son is like, no, I was wrong. I wasn't there. I was here.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Are you sure you aren't just lying? Are you sure you aren't covered?" And it's like he's just like, "No, I'm sorry. I made a mistake." And like all of these like kind of unexpecteds that like crop up throughout the whole process of the trial, which is also portrayed as like a kind of minorly grueling experience as well. So you can sense like all the different pressure from like different sources. All of that is all of that's like really well realized and really deep.
Well, especially I think they do a great job of just adding the stress of like, you know, and then like there's the fade in and it's like a year later.
Yeah.
Like, oh, also literally you've had to sit on this for like just a year.
A year. Trials. Oh my god. That's short for a trial. That's like
yeah.
In America? Oh god.
Especially a high profile trial like that.
Yeah. How long did the Casey... It felt like the Casey Anthony trial lasted forever.
December 11th, 2008 is when her body was found.
Yes.
Trial ends July 17th, 2011.
That is like almost 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years of your life spent... I mean... God, I don't know. It's not designed to be fun, but let me state the obvious. It's not fun. Doesn't seem very fun. Yeah, like it's that aspect of the movie I found like really cool and salient and astute and stuff. The sort of the auras, the physical realities, the influence of many energies.
Part of the reason why I mentioned before, I'm actually interested in watching some of the director's other films. Visually, this film just has like a filmic language that I found fascinating. Like it uses crash zooms really unexpectedly. And it has these scenes that kind of blend the language of like television camera and like, you know, like traditional narrative cinema, to the point where sometimes it's hard to tell whether or not you're watching something that's like a diegetic video or a non-diegetic video.
Yeah, the shot of like them dropping the mannequin from the window, that was very disorienting for me.
Yeah.
In a way I liked, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like it. Like I like this film's visual language because it's very it's kind of subtle, but it makes things feel just slightly disorienting in the way that like trying to recall details that you've thought over and over and over again does. The like real quick shots of Daniel imagining his dad dropping from the ceiling after being attacked versus after just falling.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting style. Incredible dog acting.
Okay, can we talk about the dog?
Easily. Snoop, one of the best dog performances of all time.
I feel like there's... the same thing is happening for child actors, because child actors are also... have been, like, slaying it for the past, like, decade or so. But there must be, like, a new conservatory for dog actors, because, like, it's like all of a sudden they're all just, like, perfect and just, like, amazing on screen and just, like, well-trained. I saw some other... I'm not going to remember what it was, but I saw some other movie that had, like, an amazing dog actor as well. But holy hell, the dying acting that this dog was doing...
All the shots where like the camera is kind of following the dog's perspective as it's like looking around for Daniel or looking around for Sandra is like really good, like really weirdly good for a dog.
Like pathos for a dog. This goes further into what I was saying about like you can write something about a dog, you know, from a dog's perspective, but when you like feel the presence of the dog. You're like, oh, that's a man, but
Yeah.
but it's a dog. But it's a man, but it's a dog.
Which I definitely feel like is why kind of the thing ends with Sandra being comforted by the dog, because especially since we have this sort of like narrative link between the dog and Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Both in, they talk about the emotionality, the relationship to their son and their son's disability, the comments he gives about the dog playing an emotional role, and someday, he's just gonna burn out.
Right.
And also even like narratively, or like, metatextually, the dog is named Snoop, and the recurring motif with Daniel
Oh, God.
is this bizarre like reggaeton remix of a 50 Cent song that they play a lot in this movie.
For a sec, I like didn't recognize it for a little bit. For a second, I was like, "What song is that?" And then she like says it in the courtroom, and it's the funniest fucking thing in the whole world.
It's so crazy because it's like it blends into everything about it. So like, well, that when they just are like, oh yeah, it's the remix of the 50 Cent song. You're just like bomb going off in your face.
Isn't there also an Eminem poster in the child's bedroom?
I think so. I mean, and the dog's obviously named Snoop after Snoop Dogg. Like,
yeah.
there's this. Also, getting into the sort of internationalness of the couple and their relationship. There's the whole dynamic of like Sandra is German, Daniel is French, but they both speak English at home.
Right.
There's a person named @LolFunnyVideos who's just commented like 800 times on the upload for 50 Cent's Pimp Snoop Dogg remix. And the most recent one is, "This track still puts chills down my spine and arms." We fucking found Daniel here.
Daniel's in the comments. Hi, Daniel.
Daniel is in the comments section.
This song gives me so much ASMR. So many tinglies.
I love putting it on when my bitch wife is talking to a woman.
When my bitch bisexual wife is trying to chow down on some pussy.
So I think what's so great about their argument is like how much it does capture what listening to parents argue is like, where you're just kind of like, I don't know, you're both kind of assholes.
Is this the first trial film about, oh god, what do they call them? Like bisexual nightmare person?
The bisexual nightmare couple?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Maybe there's gotta be. I mean,
there's gotta be another one out there.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm blanking on it. Yeah, because like in that argument, it's like, yeah, Sandra. He is right in that Sandra is obviously a narcissist control freak, but also there are times where she says things where she's like, I don't know, dog, you moved us to your hometown.
Yeah.
Like, there is a degree in which it's like, I'm not necessarily stopping you from writing. Like, you are choosing to not write.
Yeah, there's certainly quite a bit to be said about like the like gender interactions here, because the song he's blasting is called PIMP.
Yeah.
It's just like this very strange kind of like limp protesting that he's doing, where he's like, no, you're my wife. Like it's not like, okay, she's a narcissist.
Yeah.
He's not being a very good communicator either.
Yeah, no, and so it leads into like how the film is really great at being like, you kind of have to decide.
Right.
Is like, you kind of have to decide with the question of, for example, of like her ripping off or plundering, as he put it, like his drafts. Well, was that something that was equitable originally, but now like he's spiteful of it, so he's like recasting it as not, or like, you know, is the interpretation that like she kind of just convinced him to give up something so that she could use it?
Yeah.
I definitely think she's lying about the, like, he read it and he was like, wow, you did it so differently. It's so good and a completely different thing. Like, that I 100% think she's lying about. That's such a, like, narcissist thing to say.
I think, as with, like, a lot of things in this movie, it's like 20% of a lie, 40% of him embellishing his opinion, 30%, 30% this, 5% that, 10%, like, it interestingly just like shows how she's able to like pull all of these threads together to kind of get her control over the finish line, so to speak. You start to feel how like perverse it is to like even have access to this level of like a couple's neuroses,
right? Yeah. Which is also a great detail of the film, is that like so much of the trial itself is about putting the couple's personal arguments on trial, basically.
Yeah.
Because that is where the motivation and everything could be defined, and so they have to put their like literal, actual, just personal arguments that aren't really anyone's business. That is the heart of the trial.
Yeah, and they have to construct a verdict out of years of bickering, you know? She won the Palme d'Or. Palme d'Or winner.
No, film has been getting good buzz. I think it's starting to finally get more of a wider release here in the States.
Uh-huh.
I saw that like locally SIFF is playing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my god, it's so weird to scroll through the Cannes like film festival page and see like which ones were like which years were canceled, because 2020 is just this big green bar about the COVID pandemic.
Oh my god, this film won the Palme Dog Award, which is a award given to dog performances.
It deserved.
Deserved. Just very funny, because I did not know that was a thing.
I didn't either. Who are the Palme Dog winners?
It's at Cannes too. It is a Cannes festival thing.
Oh my god. That's hilarious. That's amazing. Oh, and they gave like a Dogmanitarian award to Isabella Rossellini.
Aw, that's cute.
Wow.
Giving Ken Loach the Lifetime Achievement Award is very funny.
Awesome. That's amazing. I want to go to the Palme Dog Festival so bad.
I want to go to the Cannes Canine Film Festival so bad.
The Canine Festival. I think I've decided. I've made my decision. My decision is that was pretty good.
Pretty good. Worth the watching?
Yeah, definitely. It's Anatomy of a Fall and Saint Omer, I would say, is like an amazing double feature if you have a high tolerance for courtroom proceedings,
drama stuff. Yeah.
One thing I will say about Saint Omer, its style. All right, this is now an episode about Saint Omer as well as Anatomy of a Fall. The style is very different. Whereas Anatomy of a Fall it's like Anatomy of a Fall is a movie about embellishments, so there's stylistic embellishments all over the place, and it's about that sort of unsureness and insecurity. Whereas with Saint Omer, it's like it's more of a situation of I know that I did it, but I don't know why, and I want this trial to help me figure out why. And during these long shots of just a person talking, the thing that catches your eye is how the clouds move in front of the sun. The clouds moving in front of the sun outside is affecting the light in the room, and the shots are so long that you can see that the sun is changing the light in the room. And there's a lot of stuff about like the moon being a spotlight, and it's very kind of rooted in the natural world and in like the placement of this court in what we consider the natural world. It's really interesting and really, really different as a film. But I praise both of those films, and I think they're both absolutely necessary French courtroom dramas from this year.
All right, yeah. Well,
so that's my decision. I'm
Yeah.
sticking with it.
Yeah, thank you for falling on in.
Oh, hey, can you actually come over here and help me with something? It's funny we should talk about this. It's a coincidence. There's something I want you to look at down out the window there on the ground.
Oh, in this uninsulated attic?
Yeah, just kind of step over.
Okay.
Kind of walk the plank.
Okay.
Am I right?
Ah!
All right, that takes care of that. No copay today. Woohoo! It's time to get Chipotle.